What's going on, everyone? Scott here, and welcome back to the channel. So, Michigan State football finishes up their spring season with the spring showcase last Saturday in Spartan Stadium. Got to get in there, see the 2026 Michigan State football team. Got to see, a little bit of drills in the beginning, and then I don't know how many plays they got in, but got in a good probably hour and a half of scrimmage type of plays. It was not full tackling, obviously not going to the ground or anything. And, a lot of it was base stuff. That's why when we go through, we're able to, go through some unofficial kind of numbers from the day that, some of the stuff is base stuff. So especially some of the running stuff is going to be, a little bit not as, revealing as if this was a full, tackle game and, whatnot going from there, because obviously, you're breaking tackles and, a couple of guys on the roster, both running back, wide receivers, and even quarterbacks being able to escape and make plays. Obviously, you don't get that in this type of environment, but just kind of seeing the shell of what this team could potentially look like here come this fall. But yeah, we're just going to talk about what we saw on Saturday, what we liked from this Saturday Spring Showcase, and then kind of expectations as we kind of wrap up this spring season, heading into the summer, and kind of maybe where expectations are. For me personally, going into the summer, before we start hearing stuff from fall camp and leading up to the first game of the season against Toledo here. So before we do jump in, if you could just hit that like and subscribe button down there. We'll have more Michigan State football content on the channel, so just make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a video. All right, so let's just jump right in. But first, we're going to shout out to Emmett Matasovsky. No, I said your last name wrong, man, but absolutely love your work. He does fantastic work covering Michigan State. So we're going to shout him out right here because he has the unofficial box score hand done in the press conference, obviously, he said. But we're going to go through some numbers from him. Just a quick box score here. Alessio Milivojevic, 15 for 23, 79 yards and an interception. Cam Fancher, 1 for 5, 4 yards and an interception. Freshman Cade Kaufman, 4 for 7 for 45 yards. Leo Hannon, 4 for 5 for 50 yards. Rushing, Kenneth Williams, a carry for 67-yard touchdown. Nice pop there. Jazian Patterson, 5 carries for 19. Cade Kaufman, 3 for 16. Cam Edwards, 3 for 14. Leo Hannon, 1 for 8. Marvis Parrish, 3 carries for 5 yards. Alessio Milivojevic, 1 carry for 5 yards. Freshman Zion Gist, 3 carries for 3 yards. Darren Jones Jr., 2 carries for 2 yards. Cam Fancher, 1 carry for 0 yards. Jace Clarizio, 3 carries for -4 yards. Then to receiving, Bryson Williams, 3 catches for 51 yards. Kershawn McCray, 5 catches, 35 yards. Rod Bullard Jr., 5 catches, 25 yards. Jaden Savory, 1 catch for 8 yards. Rayshon Ellimore, 1 catch for 7 yards. Kai Rios, 2 catches for 6 yards. Jazian Patterson, 1 catch for 6 yards. Freshman Zach Washington, 1 catch for 4 yards. Darren Jones Jr., 1 catch, 4 yards. Brendan Parachek, 1 catch, 1 yard. Charlie Baker, 1 catch for 1 yard. Jace Clarizio, 1 catch, -1 yard. Had a few defensive stats as well. Adam Shaw, 2 tackles for loss. Carlos Hazelwood, 1 sack. Cal Thrush, a half a sack, 2 quarterback pressures. Derek Simmons, half a sack. Kenny Soares Jr., half a tackle for loss, 2 quarterback pressures. Dion Crawford, half a tackle for loss. Tyrone Chappell, 2 pass breakups. DJ White, pass breakup, as well as Chris Purowaskis. No, I said that wrong. I apologize. We'll learn that this summer. 1 pass breakup. Michael Ricard, 1 tackle for loss. Devin Vaught, 1 tackle for loss. Jackson Wilson, a tackle for loss. Then Avion Gross, 1 interception. Najee Burt, 1 interception as well. Trey Lyle, 1 presser. Luke DeJager, pass deflection. So again, shout out to Emmett for doing those unofficial handwritten, hand-taken box score press conference. Shout out to Emmett for giving us some numbers there, but obviously a lot of that is skewed, but kind of what I got from kind of the, plays and situations that we saw. Obviously, I'm not going to take much from the running side of things, because obviously, as I said, a lot of what I think the running back room in general is going to be breaking tackles and stuff. We did see some nice moves from, obviously we saw the big pop from Kenneth Williams, but my guy, Cam Edwards, he was the guy I was most excited about from the transfer portal window coming in. I thought he played really well in his times. I thought he was able to kind of maneuver through some things. Then obviously, I think once we see his break tack ability, I think that'll even, raise his stock up even more. But even just a little bit that we saw in this one, I really like what I see from Cam Edwards so far. From the quarterback side of things, Alessio coming into the year, obviously, big deal was keeping him around as your starting quarterback. And, I thought he looked fine. Obviously, the numbers aren't going to jump off the screen, but I thought a lot of it was, it was a spring game for a reason. Not a lot was out there. A lot of the stuff was base stuff. But I thought Alessio looked fine. I thought he was able to kind of extend the pocket a little bit when he could and make some nice, little bit throws on the run. But yeah, thought he looked fine. Cade Kaufman, obviously freshman, but he had nice moments in this one. Leo Hannon is still my guy. If you, were tuned into the channel last year, that I was very high on Leo Hannon, and I thought he had some nice moments in this one. Cam Fancher maybe struggled a little bit. Some of that is some of spring stuff, but also too, I think a lot of what he's able to do, we saw it in that FAU game a couple years ago when he was obviously on the opposing sideline. A lot of, being able to escape and running ability and whatnot, stuff that you're not going to see in a spring game because you're not going to pull that out in a spring game. But quarterback room, feel okay with. Obviously, need to see larger sample sizes once we get into the season, and, we'll get that. So, but as of now, feel fine with where we're at with the quarterback room. Wide receivers, Krishan McCray, I think, is going to be incredible in like kind of the short kind of gadget route stuff. Like little, kind of short 4 or 5 yard routes, catch and out to, maybe on like a 2nd and 8, catch a 5-yard pass and being able to turn it around for a 13, 14-yard gain. I think we're going to be able to see a lot of that for him on nice, slants, in routes, whatever. Bryson Williams, I think he's going to be a dude. He's a big guy. Go up and get the ball once, they're able to, form some matchups and get him some looks that way. I think he's going to be good there. Charles Taplin as well was repping with the ones for a little bit. And I know Pat Fitzgerald said, like, in his media availability, like, don't take too much stock into, who's repping with who's with the ones, who's with whatnot. And we're not going to take too much from that, but just something of note there. Obviously, Samson Gash was not playing in this spring showcase. He was not an early enrollee, but I'm excited about the wide receiver room, especially once, Samson Gash does join that room too. I think he has an opportunity to obviously, play early, and I think he will as well. So excited to see that. Tight end room, Kai Rios. He was involved a lot in this spring showcase. Obviously, Brendan Parachek had moments as well, but yeah, Kai Rios, and he had that touchdown, I think, the last game of the season last year too. So could be, maybe continuing momentum from that. Obviously, different staffs and everything, but he seemed to be heavily involved. Just defensively, not too many notes. I thought the defense looked solid, but again, it's kind of the funny thing in these spring games, spring showcases. It's like, oh, if your defense looked good, does that say more about your defense, or does that say something bad about your offense? And then vice versa, your offense looks good. Does that say something bad about your defense or something good about your offense? So not too much going to take here. The Najee Burt, Avion Gross interceptions. Kicking, punting was fine with Rise. He was good, but field goals, definitely a work in progress. It was windy out there. So, we'll give a little bit of grace there, but that's definitely something that'll have to be, shored up as we, move through this off season this summer and we head into fall camp. So that kind of wraps up what we saw on Saturday. Overall, I thought, obviously would have liked, this has nothing to do with the football, would have liked a little bit better weather, but I thought for what the weather was, it was kind of raining, whatnot. Thankfully, it stopped for the practice or spring showcase, whatever, and everything. But for the weather and situation, with where this program is at right now, I thought it was a solid turnout. I would probably say 25-ish% of the stadium was full. I didn't expect this to be anywhere 40-50% full. Maybe if we, had like 70-degree, perfectly sunny weather, maybe we get up to 30-35%. But, we have to be honest with where the program is at right now. I didn't expect, even some of the later Mark D'Antonio years. I mean, especially with bad weather. I mean, I've been in there when it seemed like there was like 500 people in there, including players and families. So, but overall, it was still a good day to get out there, and it was nice to see the team, kind of the energy of a new coaching staff. That's kind of what I was looking for with vibes, and coming away with you know okay okay vibes. I think we're moving in the right direction. Is kind of my general assumption. What are we going on about 5 months almost since Pat Fitzgerald was named the head coach here at Michigan State, and everything that has kind of transpired from there. I thought there's been some nice moments. Obviously, there's been some stuff that we can definitely improve on the recruiting front. But he's getting back into the college ranks of things, and obviously going to a new place. Obviously, not too far from where he was at before, but obviously getting back and kind of rebuilding maybe some of those recruiting relationships. And listen, recruiting at Michigan State is, this is no disrespect to Northwestern at all, but recruiting at Michigan State is a little bit different than recruiting at Northwestern as well, especially kind of in this NIL transfer portal era. So I do like what Pat Fitzgerald is doing. I still will remain steadfast in what I kind of said when he was first hired is, I like kind of the energy and idea of what we're going with here. I like some of the hires that he made. I like keeping Joe Rossi on staff. Obviously, keeping Courtney Hawkins on staff as well. I really like both of those moves. Obviously, bringing back Max Sabola, that was a home run hire. Everything else, our defensive line coach pulling, someone from the NFL. I thought that was, a good move there. There is some question marks that I still have with some of the staff, though, particularly on, the offensive coordinator, Nick Sheridan, coming in from Alabama. There's just some question marks there because we don't know. We don't know. Obviously, you're coming from Alabama, should be, should be highly thought after. And I'm not saying this as like I don't think he's going to work out. It's just some question marks, as you should have with a new staff coming in. But what you shouldn't have, and I'm glad that I see we don't really have, is what we kind of had when Jonathan Smith came in. Is some people were like, yes, a fresh, clean slate, and you're excited for a new coach, like you should be when a new coach comes into your program. But we don't have a part of the fan base like when Jonathan Smith came in. They're like, oh my God, we should have hired this guy. Oh my God, nothing is good. And just not giving the staff, the coaches, and, this roster program right now, as it is currently constructed, not giving them a shot. So I like that we don't have this right now. I still do have question marks about, the staff and kind of how things are going. Want recruiting to kind of pick up here and, hopefully high school recruiting, visits here during the summer and whatnot are going to be big and landing some key commits going into next year. Because, let's be honest, we're going to kind of get into the schedule here real quick and just expectations. But, I don't think this is mean of me to say or, that I'm being a bad fan by saying I don't think we're going to be going to Indianapolis this December, first week of December for the Big Ten Championship. I could be completely wrong, and I hope I'm wrong, and this clip gets clipped, solid 8 months from now, whatever the case may be. But, listen, this is a step-by-step process, but what I think I've kind of come to a realization as, and I think a lot of people are coming to this realization as well, like it used to be when you hire a new coach, like, all right, you got 4 years, you want to see gradual improvement, but once you get to the fourth year, especially at each program is different, but I like Michigan State, like, okay, if this was, say 10 years ago, something like that, and we were in this situation, new coach, like, all right, you got 4 years, like first year, all right, get everything in, second year, get some guys in, slowly, moving up, and then that third year, kind of knocking on the door, fourth year, it's like, all right, you need to be there in, Big Ten title, college football playoff, contention. Right now, and we kind of saw that with Jonathan Smith, there was obviously a lot of other factors in that too. You don't have 4 years. In my opinion, you have 2 years to kind of show improvement with the portal era and everything that you can do. And this is not comparing to like Indiana, because that's a completely different situation. And that's, I'm not saying that's not repeatable, but that's like the exception. That's not the norm. But you really have 2 years. The first year is, being able to retain the good players on your roster that fit your, culture. And I do like the pieces that Fitzgerald was obviously able to keep. Obviously, mainly like Jordan Hall, Leslie Milivojevic. They seem to have been the two big leaders, but obviously keeping other key pieces on the roster as well, like defensive tackle, Derek Simmons, and keeping other pieces on the roster as well. I like on the defensive side, Brady Pretzloff. And then some of the transfer portal classes as well, like Cam Edwards and Ben Morosky coming over from UConn. Those were two of my favorites, but those were my two favorite, off-season transfer portal additions. Charles Brantley coming back, see how that looks. But, I think he's done some good things, with the roster in terms of that standpoint. But first year, you got to build a competitive roster to get back to the postseason, get to a bowl game, and, try to knock off, win a game or two that you shouldn't win. And kind of go from there. Then year two with this, it's like, all right, that's in. Now high school recruiting, got to take a step up. Transfer portal commit, get that, kind of squared away and just fill out the rest of the roster. And then like, okay, you need to kind of compete. Not saying you need to make it to Indy year two, but year two, it's like you need to be like, all right, we had some chances, weren't able to finish some games, but we're knocking on the door. So everything is kind of just sped up in this, current landscape of college football. But we'll just kind of quickly end out here with looking at the 2026 football schedule. Now, the first month or so of Michigan State's season, I actually really do like, and I think it lines up nice for them. Now, their first, really kind of looking at their first 5 games from September 5th, the opener. Hopefully that gets moved up a day to the Friday night opener, but looking at that first game through the October 3rd game in Madison, I'm not saying those 5 games you should go 5-0, or obviously you want to go 5-0, but you're probably not going 5-0 in that stretch. But I think if you kind of break this thing down by sections, if you look at that first 5 games, you got Toledo opening up the season at home and Eastern Michigan. All right, you got to get 2 wins there. If you can get one more win out of at Notre Dame, obviously going to be very tough, versus Nebraska, who's obviously, that's going to be at home, but they're obviously going to be new quarterback with Dylan Raiola moving on, transferring out of there and whatnot. So that's an interesting game, and you get it at home. And then you head to Wisconsin, which has obviously also been kind of struggling over the last couple of years as well. But obviously playing in Madison is never easy. If you can get 3 wins out of those first 5 games, I think that sets you up nicely going through the rest of the season. Because then you go, after Wisconsin, you come home for homecoming against Illinois, which is obviously, they've been, good. They've been, top 25, borderline top 25, last couple of years, whatnot. So that'll be a tough game, but homecoming at home. And then the next week you have Northwestern at home. Obviously, Fitz playing against his former team that he coached, that he played at, everything. So that's a key 2-week home stretch there. You get one of those. All right, you're sitting at 4. Then you go on the road to UCLA, obviously looking different. They, looked good, obviously, against us last year and second half of the year last year. But you go to UCLA, and then you have a bye week, and then you go to that school down the road. That kind of 3-week stretch, but 2-game stretch is kind of interesting. If you can sneak out a win in one of those, to get you to five wins, you're set up nicely going into kind of a tough finish in terms of opponents, but kind of friendly in the fact that the last 3 games of the season, you get home against Washington, home against Oregon, 2 teams that'll, be definitely top half of the conference. Oregon probably, top 2-3 in the conference. But then you go on the road to Rutgers to finish it out. So tough opponents, but you get them at home later in the year, which is nice. So like I kind of said, when you break this thing down, the first month I think is very key for if you're getting to a bowl game. If you come out of the first month and you don't have at least 3 wins, I think it's going to be a tough uphill battle once you get to homecoming and move on. Those are 2, especially at home games. Like I think Illinois is going to be good as well. Northwestern. Those are none of these games are going to be easy per se, but especially once you get through that stretch of October 17th against Northwestern. So your first month and a half of the season, you've got to be sitting at, looking at your opponents down the stretch, you've got to be sitting already at worst 4 wins, ideally 5 wins, and then if you can, then you just need 1 win in your last, month and a week of the season at UCLA, at the school down the road, versus Washington, versus Oregon, and then on the road at Rutgers. If you need those games to just get 1 game, you're in a really good spot. And that's what I hope Michigan State can do. Kind of the range, not that I don't want to give a prediction, but I do think the range for this team is 4 wins to 7 wins. I think the Toledo and Eastern game are non-negotiables. You have to have those. Those are 2. I think you, just looking at it, I do think you get at least 1, if not 2, of the Nebraska, Wisconsin, Illinois, Northwestern. I think you get 2. If you get 2 of those, you're sitting at 4. And then you got to squeak out 2 games of the last month and a week of UCLA, school down the road, Washington, Oregon, Rutgers. I think this team is 4 to 7 wins, somewhere in there. If you had to ask me right now to go through, I'll say the first 2 wins, probably not winning against Notre Dame. Nebraska, I think will be a big one. I'd probably still slightly, I'd lean Michigan State in that one. That's 3. Wisconsin, playing in Madison's always tough. Illinois is tough, but I think I'd like Fitz in the Northwestern rematch. Get 1 of UCLA or school down the road. Hopefully that's school down the road, but I think they can get 1 of those for 5. Washington and Oregon, the 2 last home games, going to be very tough, but then you got to get Rutgers at the end of the year. So I think 6 or 7 wins is kind of where I see this team, but I do understand that the floor is, kind of 4 wins probably. But I do lean towards Michigan State making a bowl game this year, and it's, in my opinion, very imperative that they do make a bowl game this year, obviously, to get this, Pat Fitzgerald era kicked off on the right foot. And I think they're in a good position to go to. I think there's going to be some growing pains for sure, but showing strides. I think, too, kind of the thing we kind of talked about in some of these big games. When you look at Notre Dame, school down the road, the Washington, Oregons of the world, and, even Illinois, to an extent, don't get blown out of these games. Like, I'm not saying you have to win all these games year 1, but don't get blown off the field in these is kind of really what I'm looking for in those. But at the end of the day, let's get to a bowl game, see positive improvement moving forward, and let's get some good vibes back. All right. But that'll do it for this one. We'll obviously, now we're kind of heading into the summer here, so not much football will be happening on the channel, much to talk about, but we will be back once we start to get into fall camp and kind of start to look at things, and as kind of maybe the depth chart maybe starts to kind of, set into place and form, and we can kind of infer on some things once we get into fall camp here and start talking about that stuff. We'll, take a deeper dive into the schedule once we get into August, getting close to the, kickoff of the season as well. But that'll do it for this one. Football wise, as I just said, we'll be back, once we get into October, get close to, the kickoff of the season, to talk about all that. But just make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a video. But we'll have a ton of other stuff on the content as well. When you're seeing it this week, we'll have NFL draft stuff. We'll have mock drafts and whatnot going up as well. Throughout the summer, we'll have other content as well. So just make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a video. But that'll do it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.